Hi friends, it's Grace and welcome back to another video. It is time to talk about my August reading plans, and this is a bit of an interesting month because while I still plan to make a TBR and MBR similar to how I usually do, for the second half of August, the final 2 weeks, I am going to be in the UK visiting the lovely Ben from Overly Average Ben, my boyfriend, and my reading habits are gonna change for sure. So I'm trying to strategically plan what I can read while I'm over there that doesn't require me to bring a ton of books with me, because I want to bring a bunch of books back with me too, so I don't want to load up my suitcase with things on the way there. So I will see what I can get done in the first half of the month. That will probably be where more of my bigger, heavier books end up shaking out, and we'll also see how that works. So it's just a scheduling thing. Scheduling is not exactly my forte because I always say that I'm gonna read way more books than I actually do read, but regardless, I've got a list here and we'll see how it goes. So as is usual when I've started doing these TBRs and MBRs, I'm gonna start with the books that are on my list to read for sure. So one of these is a carryover from July into August, just because July has been a very busy month for me, and I'll probably start this in the next few days at the end of July, but I obviously won't get it finished because it is a chonker. And that is A Long Time Coming, A Memory of Light by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. I'm really excited for this book. This has not been put off on purpose at all. I have just really honestly been busy and I haven't wanted to start this and try and juggle it with a bunch of other things. I want to be able to dedicate my attention to it because it deserves it. I've been waiting to come to the conclusion of this series for a long time, so this will definitely be happening in the next couple of weeks. Next up, we have my patron pick for the month of August. I was about to say June for some reason. We're well past that. And that is going to be The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin, and this has been on the wheel from Victor for a while, but welcoming a new patron, Andras, and he picked it as well, so that meant that the chances went double and we landed on The Fifth Season. And I'm excited about it because I have always wanted to get into N.K. Jemisin, and I've also always intended to start with The Fifth Season with her stuff. So I'm definitely going to get to this in the first half of the month as well, and I'm really fascinated to see what I think about it. I've mostly only heard great things, and I really do think I'm going to love it. Okay, the third book that I have on my list to read for sure is Going Postal by Terry Pratchett, and this is the book club pick for mine and Ben's Discord book club. And so every month the wheel gets spun, someone will win, that person will get to choose 2 books that the rest of us vote on, and the winner gets picked for the book club. So this month, Ben actually won, and so this was his pick, and I know that this is a Discworld book that he really loves, and I'm really looking forward to reading it. And yeah, so this is going to be a fun one, and I think that this will be in place of mine and Ben's normal City Watch buddy read. That's why I have City Watch on the brain. But it's nice because we're still going to be getting in a Discworld book, and we still intend to continue with the City Watch series no matter what. As always, I will have the Discord linked in the description if you are interested in joining the book club or just joining the Discord. You don't have to join the book club. And then the fourth book on my TBR is, and I keep getting this title wrong, The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches. And this is an electronic ARC that I requested on NetGalley. I'll have the cover up this whole time I've been talking about it, and this just sounded really fun. This is being published on August 23rd, so I will have to see what happens with this because I will have this in an electronic form, which would make it very convenient for me to read it while I'm in the UK, but I also might not be making videos while I'm in the UK, so we'll have to see what happens there because I would love to do a review of this and post it on the channel, but I don't want to read it in the first half of the month if I can read it electronically. I'll decide. We'll see what happens. But regardless, this just looked like a really fun book, and I love reading about witches, and I love like watching shows and movies about witches. That's just, I don't know, are witches a trope? If so, that's a trope that I love, but also it's just a like story set piece that I love and I always have. So I saw this on NetGalley and thought that I would request it without really knowing too much about it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And then finally, before we get to the might be read pile, we have my audiobook that I have out on Libby for the month of August, or at least for the start of the month, and that is Finlay Donovan is Killing It. And this is one that I have heard about from various sources. I know that Kayla from Books and Lala loves this book, and this is essentially I think it's like a comedy, maybe it has some thriller aspects, but Finlay Donovan is a writer, and someone overhears her in like a coffee shop or something talking about how she's going to kill someone. But she's talking about how she's going to kill a character in a novel, but someone thinks that she's a hit woman and tries to hire her to do a job. So it honestly just sounds like shenanigans all around, and it's something that I've had on my radar for a while. It just happened to come up as available now on Libby, so I'm looking forward to listening to that one as well. Okay, so now we're getting into might be read territory, which is the longer list of things that I will choose from as we get deeper into the month. And honestly, at this point, it's pretty much a meme that I still have The Ember Blade on my TBR and haven't read it. I don't know what to say. I have no defense. I want to read this book. I swear, like I promise. So there it is. That's it. Then, as another carryover from July, we also have From the Ashes by Jesse Thistle, which is a memoir about his experience growing up as Métis in Canada. And this one, I mean, this just sounds interesting. This isn't necessarily one that has to be read on any kind of timeline, because it's not like its value is going to go away. Like, it's not like this is a trendy book that I need to read now. It's just in general, I think, a valuable book as a Canadian, and I think it'll be really great. Then from there, we have the other patron picks that didn't win, but I always continue to spin the wheel to get an order for all the books where if I have time to get past the first book and read another, I'll know what order to read them in. So first up for that, we have The Grace of Kings by Ken Liu, which I do want to get to because of just the explosion in popularity that this series has had this year, and how many people have said that various books from this series are their favorite books of the year. It really does make me excited to get to it, but at the same time, it's a chonker, so we'll see what happens. Maybe not this month with me traveling, but it is just in general a book that I'm really interested in. Then next up for the next patron pick, we have Maybe You Should Talk to Someone, which I do have on Kindle, which means that maybe it has a higher chance of being read in the second half of this month, because that would be very convenient for me to be able to read it electronically. And this is a book like written by a therapist, and it just sounds like a great nonfiction read. I guess it is technically nonfiction because it's being written by a professional, but I don't know if it's meant to be like a self-help sort of book. I kind of think that it is, but I generally like those when they're empirically based and like backed up by science, and I get the feeling that this probably is, being that the advice is being given by an actual therapist, so I really like that. And then finally we have Donut Fall in Love, and this was picked by Kate, and so this is like definitely a short, fluffy romance read, which always sounds appealing. So this one, even though it's at the bottom of the list, may be able to be fit in, but it just depends on what happens with all my other reads, because this would be easier for me to get through than, like, for example, The Grace of Kings, even though I'm more excited in a general sense to read Grace of Kings because of that whole series. This would be easier in the short term to actually like read in a timeline manner. Then, just to dig myself a deeper hole, of course, I'm going to mention a few of the books that I talked about in my recent video about the Goodreads list of most popular recent fantasy books, because going through that list, what I realized is that I own a bunch of those books that I have not read yet. And so I mentioned a few that I was the most interested in from that list. And one of them that I have on Kindle is A Master of Jinn by P. Djeli Clark. And I read Ring Shout by P. Djeli Clark earlier this year and discovered that I really jive with his writing style. And for such a short novella, I loved what he was able to do with like world building and characters and everything really. So I'm excited to get to another one of his works. And I love the idea of this. Not sure whether A Master of Jinn is a novel or also a novella, but it is set in like 1920s Cairo, I think, and this setting and atmosphere just seems so like evocative, and the characters and mystery that we're following just sound like they're going to be really, really rich and something that I will really love. So that one is on Kindle, which drastically increases its chances, like I said, of being read in the second half of the month, which is why it's first on this list. But I do have 3 more to mention. So first up is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, and this I actually had on my 5-star predictions video that I did about a year ago, and I've never actually gotten to it to this point, and I've done really well on some of the other 5-star predictions, and this is like almost historical fiction. I guess that makes it historical fantasy, but the setting, like ancient Chinese politics and stuff, sounds really interesting, and the like motivation of our main character, who has been told that she is nothing in comparison to her brother who had this massive destiny. Like the character motivations sound really interesting, and there's a lot to love about this, including the way that the book looks. But this would be probably my next priority on this list. And then we have another book set in Cairo, which is The City of Brass. Honestly, aside from that, I don't know too much about it, but the 3rd book in this series, I believe, was featured on that list that I talked about. And I forgot to mention that I owned this book because I wasn't thinking of it. I was like, oh, well, that's on the list, but that's not the book I own. This is the first book in the series, and I really should have counted it. And I've been interested in City of Brass for a long time too. This is a favorite of so many people on BookTube, and it doesn't get talked about as much this year, but I think it's just because there was a wave of people like reading it and loving it, and that has kind of died off now, and I would love to like rekindle some of that and talk about this book, and I do think that it sounds really great. So this is the next priority from that list. And then finally, because I tried to just choose 4 even though there were others, we have The Unbroken by C.L. Clark, and this is definitely lower fantasy. I think this is military fantasy. This is also sapphic, if I'm remembering correctly, all of which are things that I haven't read a ton of, but I do like the idea of them. And I think that, well, I've read them individually, but I'm looking forward to seeing the combination of these aspects, and I don't know, I feel like I've really heard good things about this one too. So these are all books that I'm looking forward to, and I have really just made my MBR quite long with a bunch of chunky books on it, and I might end up seeing whether I can borrow some of these from the library app to make it a little bit more realistic for me to maybe get to them. But what is an MBR if not a long list of books that probably won't be read, but I want to read them? So the gist of it is, guys, I'm doing my best, I promise. I mean, I hope that all of these books don't end up like The Ember Blade, where I just put it on my TBR every month and somehow don't read it. I really hate myself for that, but it does happen, so it is what it is. But anyway, that is it for this video. Please let me know what you think about this list down in the comments. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you would like to see more content from me. I post new videos every Monday and Thursday. And like I mentioned, I am going to be traveling in the second half of this month, but I will post updates about how my video schedule will change closer to the dates. But again, if you subscribe, I really do appreciate it. And as always, I will have all of my Discord, Patreon, and socials links down in the description if you're interested in any of that stuff. And with that said, I hope that you have a fantastic rest of your day. Bye!